Well, it's always great to be back on the East Coast. I flew in from California yesterday. I grew up on the East Coast, spent my entire life living here, New Jersey, Florida, went to school in New York, so I love coming back. New York is one of my favorite cities, and thank you all for being here today. I thought we needed to move a little bit just to get the energy going. Before we get into a talk that I'm going to speak about around analytics and artificial intelligence. So I'm going to be kicking off a data section of our agenda, which includes 3 data discussions with the central theme of ensuring success of enterprises' data strategy and initiatives. And I think we heard some really great examples by Michelle and Keith of how they're leveraging data to really drive business insights for their companies. So I'm going to take the next 15 minutes to talk about the 3 things that could make or break your data strategy in this new data era. Then we're going to have a roundtable of experts. We're going to have a brief dive into a domain that, frankly, is central to a data strategy, and that will be storage. And then later this afternoon, we're going to cover AI. So we're going to get all different aspects around data strategy, analytics, and artificial intelligence. So I come to today's discussion really informed by 2 perspectives. First of all, I've spent 30 years in enterprise IT. I've been a 3-time CIO. I came to Intel on the IT side, and now I'm running our enterprise and government data center group business. Really exciting journey for me, but more importantly is I've walked in your shoes. I understand the challenges that you're facing. I understand the complexity that you're dealing with. And in my time in those CIO roles have led major transformations of various kinds, which I'm going to use as examples today to kind of talk about the journey around a data or creating a data strategy. My current role, I get to partner with CIOs across the industry and around companies to really help them in their transformation journeys. As Shannon talked about, the explosion of life as a service coupled with the increase in smart devices is driving a massive influx of data. And those numbers are only projected to grow. We've all heard the expression, data is the new oil. Data eats the world. Yes, their numbers are growing. And by 2020, they're actually pretty astounding. The average internet user will generate 1.5 gigabits of traffic per day. I think my teenagers might already be doing that. I'm not sure. It's going to wait till 2020. Autonomous vehicles, that what Shannon was talking about in the previous discussion, 4 terabytes of data per day. Connected airplanes, 5 terabytes. And if we look at smart factories, we're looking at a petabyte of data a day. That's a tremendous amount of data. Making sense of that data to gain insights requires you to optimize your operations and your infrastructure and automate and simplify your business processes. And that's where the hard part comes in, that many of us know. But the results can be powerful. There's lots of examples about the power of analytics and AI. You heard some of those examples in the previous talk. 2 initiatives that are currently driven at Intel that I want to talk about is one around Intel Data Exchange, allowing institutions to leverage others' data to conduct research. We bring the algorithms to the data sets versus having to move the data, and the sensitive private data actually remains within the institution. So we apply this technology in helping research institutions with cancer, and actually understanding and diving in and having access to those bigger data sets across those institutions allowed us to find new treatments for cancer. The second, which is a initiative that I'm personally involved in, is working with the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children of getting the reports to find those missing and exploited kids of sometimes what takes 3 months down to 24 hours by leveraging the power of the analytics and machine learning to actually optimize a lot of the work that's being done so that we can find kids and bring them home. So let's take a look at where enterprises are today. We know that data analytics and business intelligence is not a new idea. Frankly, we remember our dashboards from the 2000s. And in fact, there was a recent study of 50 Fortune 1000 execs 45% of them said they were seeing value out of their big data initiatives. That's nearly half. However, when we dig a little bit deeper into the data, they're asked to characterize the level of success of their various initiatives in which they reported. And this resonates with a lot of what I'm seeing across industry. We've figured out how to use big data to reduce costs, and we've even figured out how to use some big data initiatives to drive some one-off or point solutions around innovations. But what's missing is not aligned to the overarching business strategy. Now we need to focus on value creation. Figure out how to take analytics and AI, integrate it into new products and services, increase our speed and agility, and ultimately drive business transformation. So I want to talk about 3 actions that must be part of your data strategy to cross that chasm to value creation. The first one, business outcomes must drive your data strategy. Now, I want to give you an example of that, leading Intel's global supply chain prior to the role that I'm in now. So Intel's supply chain is a very complex architecture, about 400 systems. The majority of those systems are custom built. We're a core SAP shop. The first thing we needed to do was really design a supply chain 2020 strategy. What did our future supply chain need to look like? And that's not from a technology perspective, that's from a business perspective. Working with our business partners in our supply chain organizations to really understand where did we need to be over the next several years from a supply chain perspective. Then, of course, I had SAP HANA. And I said to the supply chain team, are you guys ready to use SAP HANA? Of course not. We didn't want a shiny new widget from IT. We have business operations that need to keep up and running, Lisa. We don't have time to try this SAP HANA. So I turned the conversation around, and this is what's so important to do. And I said to the supply chain organization, tell me what your biggest business problems are that you're trying to solve. Now we had them thinking, and they said, you know what? I need to understand where my inventory levels are on a weekly basis. It's taking me too long to get data. Now with all the new products and capabilities that Intel has. So we took that opportunity to solve that business problem, leveraging SAP HANA, finding where our data was, having a data strategy, but more importantly, aligning the data strategy to a broader business strategy of what the company was trying to do. And eventually what we were able to do is took something that took weeks, frankly, with spreadsheets and approval processes and all of that used to occur, down to minutes to get them the data. Were they bought in? Absolutely. They were bought in now, because now we were actually solving problems for them and actually enabling them to move the business to move faster. So it's only fitting, if we think about that, and being here in New York, that I actually share a quote from Yogi Berra that basically says, if you don't know where you're going, you might not actually get there. It's so easy, because of the complexity of what we're doing, to get pulled down different directions instead of being laser focused into what is the business strategy that I'm trying to drive and those outcomes that I'm driving to, and then take the technology and enable the business to thrive with the capabilities. Which brings me to my second point. We must democratize analytics. Now, what do I mean when I say that? Well, we know that mid-sized companies are having the most success with analytics and AI. Why? Because they don't have to deal with the legacy infrastructure that many larger enterprises have and the hierarchy that exists in these larger companies. And as CIOs, we know that implementing organizational and system change is hard. In fact, we say it's not the technology that's hard, it's the change management that makes it hard in really driving and leveraging these new capabilities that we have. The competitive advantage of transformation that I spoke of earlier is only possible if the data strategies democratize analytics within our companies. The traditional IT approach to data has been that of gatekeeper. You need to come through IT to access the data. That's no longer going to work. It's not fast enough. We slow the business down. A lot of that was because the tools were not necessarily intuitive, and you needed a certain skill set to really leverage the analytical tools on the business side, but that's no longer the case. The tools are intuitive, and as technology professionals, we need to put the hands in the tools of the business so that they can drive their decisions faster. To truly democratize data across your company, you have to establish governance that defines standards of data, and you need to think end-to-end across your company. And the data governance piece is not easy. How many of us understand where our data is? Is data defined the same across all of my applications? Do I have a master data strategy? What is the data that I'm going to put into an SAP HANA capability to drive the insights that I need for the business? All of those things need to be established, and it starts really with data governance. And of course, keeping security in mind as we do that with appropriate data access and controls. I'll give you an example of that. As the CIO at Georgetown University, we had Salesforce, as an example, implemented in various different parts of the university. The law school had an instance, the college has an instance. I think we had 20 different instances of Salesforce. What's the problem with that, some would say? Well, the problem of that is when it comes to data, because the data wasn't defined the same in each of those incidences. I didn't have a master data. I didn't have a data plan nor a data strategy. So now when I want to leverage data to drive insights across the institution of what's happening in the law school versus on the main campus versus here, and collectively pull that data together to drive insights, it really made it very complex to do so. So that's an example of defining data, establishing standards and governance, driving that architecturally across the company, and then the architecture to go ahead and support that. When we democratize the data in our companies, it has the potential now to provide that insight at every level of the company. Whether I want to inform new products and services, how we hire, what I want to do in my supply chain, so as a company I can ultimately respond faster. To make that possible, our data strategies must start with an end in mind. And with the constant influx and growth of data, we must architect for the future. And we heard a little bit about that with Michelle talking in terms of stepping stones of preparing her infrastructure for the continued influx of that data. So this brings me to my third and final point. Future-proof your analytics infrastructure. With 30 years in enterprise IT and now running enterprise and government IT transformation for Intel, the most important message I want to leave for you here today is you cannot win in this environment on legacy infrastructure. You cannot win in this data era on legacy infrastructure. We have to optimize the infrastructure to really leverage the power of that data. And this is not about refresh. This is about a holistic enterprise transformation, including your data center, to manage your company's most valuable asset today for the next era, and that is your data. So I'm proud to say that Intel's latest product family, our Intel Xeon Scalable Processors, powers your next generation data center. Leveraging these new technologies, increasing your performance, giving you better security, more speed and agility, and at the same time reducing your total cost of ownership. What's the value of optimizing and leverage these cloud infrastructures? And I'm just going to use round numbers. If I had 100 people managing my data center, because of all the abstraction at a software layer and the optimization and the tools and capabilities, I require a fraction of the number of people to ultimately manage my data center. Right? So that's what we're thinking about as we talk about reducing the total cost of ownership. Data is making end-to-end architectural strategy a must. And to optimize your business with reducing your time to insight by leveraging these new capabilities and optimizing your cloud infrastructure so that you can really drive the success and transformation in your companies. How do we begin that journey? First, you need to understand, what do I have in my data center? What's my current state? What are my application workloads? Where should I place those workloads? And certainly we as Intel work with our partners and with our customers to figure out optimal workload placement in managing a multi-cloud environment. And we're going to talk later today, I'm going to come back and talk about hybrid cloud and that multi-cloud environment in which our infrastructure is going to sit. So we've covered a lot this morning, and there's more to come, but I want to leave you with one question. The future is here. Is your data strategy and infrastructure ready for it?